Okay, we're rolling. 1, 2, 3. All right, I'm Quinn Redeker, Police Motor Training. So we are here at the Mid-Atlantic Police Motor Competition. So there's the nice tent, good food, nice some coffee. So I was just gonna do a quick walkthrough, kind of a what this pattern, kind of how I'm thinking of deconstructing this thing when I ride it. I rode it a little bit yesterday. We still have today and tomorrow, and then it's game day. So this is the speed course. This is the timed event. So this is the start box. First thing I notice is that's a 90-degree left. So one of the things I don't want to do when I set up here is I don't want to be in the middle, and I don't want my bike facing straight ahead. So what I do is I tend to move my motorcycle more at an angle like this, and I line up so my back tire is just inside this line here. So I'm faced here, so when I take off, my trajectory is more toward this way, so that I can get the front end here, the back end's gonna miss that cone. That's my main thing. So I'm coming in at an angle, swing out, really, I try to take this kind of straight up and down. You just don't want to be that guy that hits that cone right away. So now you're gonna come in here. I'm gonna go nice and deep here. I'm on the brakes, so I'm trail braking in here. You don't have to use this whole pattern, but this is one of those sections where, again, we just started the competition, okay? So you don't want to get too greedy. I always say steer to the outside cone. Well, the outside cone in this case is right here. These are the outside cones. Do I need all this real estate? Not necessarily, but especially on my timed run, when penalties count, what am I gonna make up? Maybe a 1/10 if I try to, say, cut inside this line. But so use the whole pattern. So I'm going to swing out, swing around, and then from here I'm going into this chute here. Now after I've made my left hand circle, I'm coming through here. We're going to be going into this figure 8 over here. So I want to pull the bike over here and drop in. Now what I found yesterday was dropping in here, so you got a couple challenges here. First of all, this is actually pretty tight space, so this is not where you want to cheat it. And the other thing that's challenging is you have, and right now it's cold and it's grippy, it's not an issue, but you have this little tar snake here. So if you start cutting in here, and believe it or not, that tar snake is in actually a pretty good position for me to start trying to execute my turn. So what you really want to do is not be pushing for traction on those things. So for me, I'm going to go past that into here. But keep in mind, there's all this stuff over here. So these are those things, situational awareness. I'm gonna want to avoid this whole mess over here. Well, so what does that look like? That looks like that when I drop into this thing, I'm gonna make an effort as I come in to really try to get over here so that I'm deep, but I'm finishing up my turn, so I'm just to the inside of all this crap. If I can, I don't want to get over here. If I can't get in here, either because I'm going to hit this cone or just because I just can't do it, it's too tight, then I'm going to swing out here. But I do not want my motorcycle on these things, period. It's going to be a problem one way or another at some point in time. And sometimes they get so slippery that even if you're not really pushing very hard, your tires are still kind of wonky. So you make your counterclockwise. Same thing here. If I'm going to go here, even if this is a good line, I don't want this line. So I'm going to go wide here. Now I'm going to be shooting out over here. That's my exit. So ideally, I want to go pretty deep here because I want to push my motorcycle this way as far as possible. What I don't want to do is end up over here, because now if I'm over here, I got a lot more stuff that I have to do to get out of here. So that's going to look like me going pretty deep in here, avoiding this tar snake, and using as much of this pattern as possible so that when I come out of here, my line is more like here. I'm going to try to get as straight a shot out of here as possible. The straighter I can go, the safer it is. Maybe it's not faster because of all this setup, but it's easier. And if I have less mental math to do, I'm better off. So now I do this, just a quick little jog. Now this, I'm going to be dropping in to this section over here, but I just point out here, if you notice, they really give you a lot of room. And one of the things that can be tricky with some motor competitions is you go through a section like this, you come through and you think, uh-oh, I really need to pull out here. Well, actually, guess what? You don't. This is just a nice smooth arc, and you drop in to this section. So pay attention to what your path of travel needs to be, not necessarily what the pattern is providing for you, because in some cases it's not necessary, but a lot of guys will use it. All that extra space, you don't need it. So here, nice and deep, nice and deep. I'm just gonna use all this pattern. Again, another little tar snake. We want to avoid all that. And now I'm gonna come through this chute here, right up in here. So this is gonna be, well, you'll see where this goes, but in this case, I'm gonna swing if you watch a video I have, it's called the chicane shimmy, where I'm kind of shimmying out, and then I drop in, because I want to use all the useful space that I have. I don't want to just execute my turn somewhere right here at this cone. I'm going to start my turn back here by coming in at an angle, so the motorcycle bags aren't going to hit this, even though my tire can be an inch from these cones. So I'm dropping in here. Again, more tar snakes. So this is an example of where there's just nothing you can really do about it. However, if you look at where they are versus there's none here, I'm gonna really, that's again why I really want to try and load the tire and push and get some turning movement done here, and I might ease up right in here. Why? Because if I'm really pushing, I noticed yesterday as it got warmer, I'm pushing right in this area and my tire is pushing out. And I'm not hitting these, but it's making me wide now when I go into this next section. So your options are, you can either slow down, which works, or you can push pretty hard, try to get your braking done, and then ease up a little bit and then push again. Sounds kind of crazy, but it actually works. So now this next section is just a tight cone weave. So the thing with these cone weaves that can be tricky, they're easy, or I should say they're simple, but the tricky part is if you take these pretty fast, again, more tar snakes, not much to do here, by the way, except this whole section here, I'm gonna try to stay on the left side of it and come out, and now I've got another one here, so I wanna be right in here in the middle of these things. Now here's a great example of, you don't wanna get your tire on this, so this is gonna be my path of travel. That's where I'm gonna push. Yes, I'm gonna cross this little mess right here, but it's not that big a deal. I'm gonna get a lot of good traction. But what people do is they'll knock that first one out, they'll hit the second one, and they'll be moving fast, and it'll look good and it'll feel good, and then they'll start getting into the later ones and they've cut themselves off and they'll start hitting stuff. So same thing, nice nice and deep here. Again, avoid the tar snake. But what I'm doing on these last two especially is I'm making a point to really come in and continue my lock so that I can get that way, because I really don't want to be over in this space somewhere over here trying to execute this last right, because I won't make it. And I can't tell you how many people yesterday ended up just blowing through these cones right here. And the reason was, when they were coming through that one, they just pushed themselves too far this way, so by the time they set up for this, they were way too close to this cone and they just didn't have enough room in here. So you really want to not cheat yourself and feel like Ricky Racer in the first couple. Give yourself room so that you're really pushing that way, so that by the time you get to this last one, you're somewhere out here and I have nice space to start accelerating early, and I'm not worried about getting through this. Okay, this is what's tricky about a pattern like this, is it's simple and it's not technically difficult. There's really no trick to it, except because of that, people kind of get a false sense of security, try to go fast, and this is where they start cheating themselves. And literally, if you go out here and hit any of these cones, your day is over as far as getting any trophies. So okay, so now we're driving down here. This is a pretty straightforward, it's a very cool section. You just get a nice smooth line through here. Now here's another example. We have all this pattern. See all this pattern that we have? Well, actually, guess what? We should be in there. We don't need all this pattern. And as much as speed feels good, a tighter radius is quicker on the stopwatch. So anytime I have an opportunity to just cut a tighter radius, even if it feels slow, I do it, because as much as it doesn't feel seat of the pants faster, it's always faster on the stopwatch. Okay, so I'm gonna cut through here. Now I'm gonna go deep here. Why? Because I wanna start cutting in right here. Cut in, cut in, cut in, cut in, cut in, and then get through this chute. Same thing here, I have all this pattern, all of this. Am I gonna use it? Nope. I'm just gonna stay right in here. I'm gonna use about half of this. and this is going to push me out a little bit, but look, I can hold this radius. Here's what's important to note. From that section all the way through here, look at that. I'm just making a nice counterclockwise turn, still turning, still turning, still turning, all the way out, okay? So we want to make moves that we can lock ourselves into as long as possible. So rather than making this one turn, two turns, now I go straight a little bit, now I do a turn again, that's like 4 turning movements. Now, practice, when you're practicing, work on getting a radius so that you can do the whole thing in one turning movement, and just keep your suspension loaded, keep your mind free. So once I'm here and I make my turning movement, I know I'm good all the way to down there. So from a mental standpoint, it's kind of nice. So now we shoot through here. These can be tricky because it's fast. This one's pretty wide, so you really don't have an issue with lots of lean angle hitting cones. Still though, we've got paint, we've got tar snakes, and this is a pretty fast spot. So, you know, ultimately you just got to work on surface appraisal. There's not much in the way of path of travel that matters here. Obviously we're going to be more toward the outsides on our turns, but this is kind of like a roller coaster. You know, once you're in it, you're just kind of going through it. Nice smooth throttle is obviously important. Now here's a little dip. This doesn't seem like there's this little crack here, but little things like this, and definitely things like this little dip. One of the things with these that you got to be cognizant of is loading and unloading your suspension. Now this really isn't going to do it's not going to do a whole lot, but it definitely, when you're coming in here trying to execute a fast, tight turn, it will upset your chassis a little bit, not a lot. This isn't, you know, it's little stuff. So, but just be cognizant of it. So for example, when I go through here, this is one of those things, I accelerate over this thing and I don't want my suspension getting upset. So I try to just keep a smooth trajectory, accelerate a little bit over this thing. And then when I'm over here into this thing, I just try to swing a little wide of it. So my path of travel is out here. I can turn this radius right where that hole is, so much tighter, but I still don't like the little suspension load right there. So this is a counterclockwise, not much to it. Another snake. Now, when you finish these, remember, everything sets up for the next thing. So when you think about, and I talk about deconstructing a pattern, when I think about, I want a nice smooth line through here, how am I going to get my bike right here? The only way to know that is to figure out where I need to put my bike when I'm in this part. When I'm coming around here, where am I going to put my bike? Because this dictates, how I set up for this circle dictates what kind of trajectory I'm going to have for the next thing. So think about that when you're working on a section. You're like, man, I'm struggling with this. Well, it's not that pattern you're actually struggling with. It's setting up for the one that's before it that you're screwing up. And once you get that one sorted out, then the one that you're struggling with, you'll realize you have a much better line of attack for it. And that's how you work backwards. So to know where I am, where I want to be here, I need to know where I want to be here. To know where I want to be here, I need to know where I want to be there, and so on and so on and so on, working your way all the way backwards around a pattern. And that is how you deconstruct a pattern, and that is how you get a nice, smooth, consistent, repeatable path of travel on game day. So in this case, I want a kind of a straight shot, but of course I've got that cone to worry about and I got the orange cone. So I'm going to do a little bit of a jog, but I don't want a big jog. I don't want to come in here where I'm really having to make turning movements. I'm just kind of keeping a little jog to get my saddlebags out of the way. Now in here, this has to be clockwise. So I'm going to go, I'll show you something. So here, this I could do this in a nice tight clockwise circle, but the problem with that is if I keep my radius nice and tight, it tends to put me kind of close to this cone and I have to drop into that next pattern, and I was hitting that. So now what I do, again, it's a safety thing, but once I come in through here and I'm working my radius, once I get here, I do a little squirt. I just squirt out about 2 feet, just give myself a little bit of room. So it's kind of like an oval. So I drop in here pretty fast, I start my turn, then I do just a little squirt here to push me just a little deeper, not going all the way. I don't need the whole thing. I just need a little bit of wiggle room. then I finish my circle again, and now I have a much better shot out of this section. I drop into this one. This one, it really doesn't matter. The finish line is there. So this is just a counterclockwise circle. So I can cheat it or not, as far as doing it nice and tight. It really doesn't matter. So this is just nice smooth circle. The only thing I would consider, and that I do consider, is taking a look at surface appraisal. Is there a line that gives me better traction? Because if I can get better traction, I can carry more momentum, and that'll help me with the stopwatch. So that's really the only thought process I have on this last circle. Typically what I've been doing is coming in here, staying off the paint. So I'll kind of shoot in here at a line like that, and I'll just dive in a little bit deep, clear all this crap, get past the paint, get past this, hammer right in here is most of my turning movements, getting those done, and then I squirt out and I'm done. And that is a lap. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about these things, what's going on in my head. And I'm going to be throwing my camera in my helmet and riding this thing, and you'll get to kind of hear the technique related stuff that I'm doing when I'm going. So I'm going to set sort of a heater lap down at some point and kind of walk you through what's going on in my brain as far as my techniques go. So check that out. I should have a video on that. And all right, cool. I hope that helped you out. Take care.